Hey guys, it's Cassera, and today I'm going to be doing my April week 1 reading vlog. So it's Sunday, March 29th. March is almost over. April is almost here, and we're all still self-quarantining because of COVID-19. But it's okay, because we're gonna get through this because we got tons of books that we can read. I'm actually somewhat excited for the books that I'm gonna be reading during this time because I have a lot of potential books planned out that are somewhat related to our current situation, sort of, just like fictionalized versions. I don't know if I'm gonna get to any of those this week because I haven't started any of them yet, but I'm kind of excited for that. I just feel like it's a great time to read apocalyptic books right now, like flu, virus, going viral, apocalyptic side of books right now. I just feel like it. But anyways, I haven't started any of those yet, but I did have a really great reading month in March so far, and I think my reading wrap-up should be out by the time this video comes out. If it is out, I will link that up in the cards for you guys. But as always, I'm gonna start off this reading vlog with the books that I'm currently reading. The first book that I'm currently reading is The Shadow of What Was Lost by James Islington. I am loving this book. Like, I'm really loving this book. I love the world, I love the magic, I love the characters. I'm really excited for the plot. It had some really great plot things in it so far, but I'm really excited to see where this one goes. What I've seen so far, like all the tropes that this book has are just like the type of tropes that I would want from a book like this. So I love it. It's so great, and I'm really excited to see where this book and this series is going. I'm almost done with this one. I'm right about there now. So I have about a quarter of the book left. And even though I didn't make any progress on this one last night or this morning, I do think I'm gonna be finishing this one before the end of March. So over the course of the next couple of days, and I'm really excited to see where this one's going. I have a feeling this is gonna be potentially one of my new favorite series. I am also currently reading Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. I'm not as far into this one. I'm right about there, so I'm not sure if I'm gonna finish this one before the end of March. My plan is to finish it before the end of March, but then again, there's only like 2 days left in March, and there's only so much I can do in 2 days, especially since I'm gonna be working both of those days. So I don't know, but I'm really enjoying this one as well. This one definitely moves a lot faster than Six of Crows did. Like, there's a lot more plot very quickly, and I'm really excited to see where it's going. I love these characters. I love the world. I love the writing style in this one, and that surprised me because I mentioned this in my last vlog, but when I picked this one up, I didn't remember Six of Crows that well, like writing style wise. I did remember the other books by Leigh Bardugo that I've read. So I've read Ninth House and the Shadow and Bone trilogy. I automatically assumed this one would lean more towards the Shadow and Bone trilogy, but it definitely reads more like Ninth House, which I like. And I'm really excited to continue on with this one. I have a feeling Crooked Kingdom might be my favorite book by Leigh Bardugo. I don't know yet, but we'll see. And I'm really enjoying this. And lastly, yesterday I decided to start Forest Mage by Robin Hobb. So this is the second book in the Soldier Sun trilogy by Robin Hobb. The first book was Shaman's Crossing, which I picked up in February because it was part of my fantasy book series challenge in which I had to read the first book in this series. And I really enjoyed it a lot more than I was expecting to. Like, for some reason, even though Robin Hobb is one of my favorite authors of all time, I kind of expected not to like the first book that much, but I loved it. And so I decided to continue on with the series. This series, like all of Robin Hobb's series, is really not very plot driven at all. It's probably less plot driven than any of the Realm of the Elderling series, but it's very character driven and character focused, and I really like it. Like, the world is just so intricate and detailed that when I'm reading it, I forget that I'm reading. I just feel like I'm in that world experiencing these things along with the characters. And I feel like that's just the way reading is supposed to be like. And I love it. So I'm really, really enjoying this, and I'm excited to continue on. I'm actually pretty far into it now. I'm right about there. So I kind of put down The Shadow of What Was Lost and read like 200 pages in this one so far. I will be continuing on with The Shadow of What Was Lost. Don't worry, like, it's gonna happen. As soon as I picked this one up, I just got like so engrossed in the story, even though like it's not particularly exciting, but just the way Robin Hobb writes engrosses me in her writing and in her world and all of that I couldn't stop reading. Like, I just, like, once I'm in this story, I'm in it and I just want to continue on. And if you've been watching my reading vlogs, then you know I've been doing a reread of the Harry Potter series. At the end of my last reading vlog, I was still reading the second book, The Chamber of Secrets, and I actually just finished it before filming this video. So last week when I was talking about it, I wasn't enjoying it as much as I was expecting to, just because I had enjoyed Sorcerer of Stone a lot more than I was expecting to. And then Chamber of Secrets, which is one of my least favorite books in the Harry Potter series, actually is my least favorite book in the Harry Potter series. The first half of it is kind of boring to me, not entirely. Like, it's still a Harry Potter book. There's still a lot of interesting things going on. J.K. Rowling's writing style still makes you want to read from one scene to the next really quickly, but there are a lot of things about it that I didn't like as much, because I don't like people accusing Harry so much of things that he really has no control over. I don't like Gilderoy Lockhart. I have issues with Moaning Myrtle sometimes. So, like, there's a lot of things towards the beginning of this book in particular that I don't like, but from the Aragog scene to the end, I actually really loved. Like, it surprised me how much I really loved it. And if you guys haven't been following along with my reread, I've been reading the illustrated edition because I got the illustrated editions last year and haven't gotten around to reading them, so I've been meaning to read them for the longest while at the same time annotating the paperbacks, because I bought the paperbacks like 3 years ago with the intent to annotate the paperbacks, because I actually owned the hardcovers from when I was a little kid of this series. So I bought the paperbacks in order to annotate them and never got around to it. So I'm annotating the paperbacks while reading the illustrated edition, and it's great. And actually, while I was rereading Chamber of Secrets, I did for a few scenes listen to the audiobook, just because, like, the Aragog scene in particular, I really love the audiobook version of the Aragog scene. I don't know why. I think it's just because it's creepy, and it's one of the few, like, scenes that I've read that actually feels like a real horror scene, especially on audio. Like, the audio is just done really well, and I really love it. Anyways, what I've been doing with this series, when I finish reading a couple chapters, I've been showing you guys some of my favorite illustrations from the chapters that I've been reading. So if you want to see some of the ones from the previous chapters that I read in Chamber of Secrets and from the Sorcerer's Stone, you can check out my previous vlogs, but I'll show you some of the illustrations from the last couple of chapters that I've read that I really love. Okay, so this is not necessarily an illustration, but this is just something that I mentioned in one of my last vlogs. I really like the texture behind the words. You can really see it very well in this one, where you can kind of see, like, just the little curly stuff and all of that. The texture just makes it feel real to me in a way that, like, I don't know, like, I just really, really love it when there's the texture behind the words. And I feel like Chamber of Secrets, they did that a lot in, and I really love reading the illustrated edition, even when there's not any illustrations on this page, because of that. This is actually kind of a cool illustration. It's a silhouette of the Hogwarts castle. You can't see it that well. I think this is at sunset, actually, and I really like this one. This is a great one. So this is when they get down to the Chamber of Secrets and they see the snake skin. It is gorgeous. I love it. And you can kind of see Harry there with his wand, and it's great. It's great. The Eye of the Basilisk. And the other thing I actually really liked about this chapter in particular, because they're inside the Chamber of Secrets like this whole time, the background is black and the words are in white, so it gives you that kind of like darker feel while you're reading the book. I doubt you guys can see it, but if you look at the bottom here, it has kind of like the snake skin sort of texture to it that I also really like. This is perhaps like one of my favorite scenes and illustrations in the series so far that I've read. This particular scene always gets me, and I think it's because, like, killing a serpent with a sword, it does not get more high fantasy than that, and I just really love it. Just Harry's facial expression right there. It's so great. I absolutely love that. Though the snake doesn't look anything like I pictured it, but that might be because I'm picturing, like, the movie snake in my head, and that does not look anything like the movie basilisk. And I also really like the phoenix in the corner. Like, that just, it gets me every time, and I love it. The snake skin in the background texture, this is great. I absolutely love the snake skin texture in the back, and I don't like snake skin, but it just works really well in the context of the story. This beautiful illustration of phoenixes, like, they have this kind of like throughout the series where, like, if there is a magical creature that has a pretty significant part to play in this section of the book, they'll have like a spread where it talks about that magical creature, and I really like those inserts into the story as well. Though I have to say, I like the male phoenix better than the female phoenix. I don't know what it is. I think it's the blue. The blue is just nicer looking against the orange. Ooh, I really love this one. It's almost like a black and white sort of like vignette of a phoenix, and the words are around it. And I always like it when the words and the illustrations are together like that. I don't know why. It's just, I love it. The Sword of Gryffindor. Dobby! And then we're back to the end of the book, and we have the greenhouse again on the back inside cover. So definitely really enjoyed this. And I'm of course really excited to continue on my reread with the next book in the series, The Prisoner of Azkaban, because it's my favorite book in the Harry Potter series. I don't know if I'm gonna get to it this week because I finished Chamber of Secrets a lot earlier than I was expecting to, and Prisoner of Azkaban I was planning to read like from like the second week of April to the end of April. Like I was giving it 3 weeks. I was also giving Chamber of Secrets 3 weeks, and it took me a week, pretty much, like a week and a day is how long it took me to read Chamber of Secrets, which was surprising because it took me a full 3 weeks to read Sorcerer's Stone, so I don't know. But anyways, I'm really excited for that. I don't know if I'm gonna get to it this week, but I'm going to try. I have a lot of other books planned for this week that I'm really excited for. It is Monday, March 30th, and I just finished The Shadow of What Was Lost by James Islington. This was fantastic. I loved the ending. The ending was so good. Now, I don't think this is a perfect book. There are definitely some flaws to this book, especially when it came to keeping my attention, because for some reason, even though I love like the atmosphere of this book and the characters and even the plot of this book, there were times where I would just feel my mind wandering off, especially when I was physically reading this book. For some reason, I could not focus when I was physically reading this book. I did read the end physically and I liked it. For most of this book, I had to listen to the audiobook because I just couldn't focus when I was reading it physically. Like, I don't know what it was. I think I've just been tired recently. Like I said, it's not a perfect book, but I did really, really love it for what it is. And if you love high fantasy, like really love high fantasy as a genre, then I feel like you would probably really love this book because it has great characters, a great plot. I love the world building and the magic in this book specifically. The world building, the magic, and the atmosphere of this book just gives you that high fantasy feel that I absolutely love. So I really enjoyed this, and I ended up giving it 4.75 stars. Okay, so it's Thursday, April 2nd. I did end up finishing a book today, Forest Mage by Robin Hobb. I was really close to finishing this book yesterday. I wanted to drag it out a little bit, so I ended up finishing this morning. I ended up reading this one entirely as an audiobook, which I hadn't planned originally. Like, I had planned to start Forest Mage as an audiobook because I didn't have another audiobook, and when I finished Crooked Kingdom, then I would continue on with Forest Mage as a physical book. I have read Crooked Kingdom a little bit, but like I said, I've had very little time for physical reading. And let's be honest, I was just super into Forest Mage. I don't think I've mentioned very much about my reading experience with this one on the vlog so far because I read the majority of it over the course of the last couple of days, and I haven't really vlogged the last couple of days, but this book is devastating. So this is the second book in the Soldier's Son trilogy by Robin Hobb. Robin Hobb is one of my favorite authors, though I will say, like, Robin Hobb is one of those authors that writes really, really slow, character-driven books. So if you like plot-based books, which the majority of readers prefer plot-based books, you're probably not gonna like her writing as much. She is very atmospheric and incredibly detailed high fantasy, are very significantly about character building and character development, and this book is no different. Like, this book is very much following the character of Navaria Braval, and the last book in the series ends on kind of a high note, somewhat of a high note, not super high, like things happen that it's kind of like, okay, this is not the best situation possible. But in this book, it's like every time you think it couldn't possibly get worse for our main character, she finds a way to make it worse. And I loved it. And I know, like, this is a little bit of a controversial opinion because I haven't heard a single person, even people who love Robin Hobb, like the Soldier's Son trilogy that much. But I'm actually really liking it. So I'm happy about that because I was a little scared that I wouldn't like this series. And one thing I would like to mention is I haven't seen any, like, high fantasy author address the ideas of body image and fat shaming the way that Robin Hobb does in this book. And she does a great job of it. There were times that in this book where I was just kind of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, like, we're talking about this in a high fantasy book. But, like, it was really interesting the way it was portrayed in this book and kind of how that played such a significant role in the plot. I actually really enjoyed that side of this book as well. I didn't expect to get something like that from this book, but it was really interesting the way that it was done. And mind you, the main character is male in this book. It's not a female main character, which usually when we talk about body image and fat shaming and things like that, the person we're talking about is female, but, like, it's a male character in this book, and it still shows how things like that can affect men as well as women. So I really enjoyed that aspect of this, and like I really want to pick up the next book in the series. And I felt the same way after Shaman's Crossing, which is the first book in the series. Like as soon as I finished that one, I wanted to pick up the next one. I also think that if you want to get into Robin Hobb's book, I recommend listening to the audiobooks, because the physical books can be really slow when you're reading them, especially if you're a slow reader. But the audiobooks are very atmospheric, and you can get super sucked into the story without like even trying very hard. So I really enjoyed that. By the way, I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars. So I'm sure that I'm gonna start a few other books today, because I'm only currently reading one book right now, which is Crooked Kingdom. I have made a little bit of progress in this, and this is really good so far. Like I'm really enjoying this. But I do think I want to start some of the other books, especially my books for my April TBR, because it's already April 2nd, and I haven't started any of my April TBR books. So I will probably get to that today. Like the one I'm most excited for is probably The Stand by Stephen King. So I'm probably gonna start that one today, because I feel like it's just like the perfect time to read that book. Oh, also, I completely forgot. This book, I didn't know, it's about the plague. Oh my gosh, there was just so much in it that I was just like, wow, this is very relevant to the current times. So yeah, I didn't expect that in Forest Mage. I mean, I should have, because of the content from Shaman's Crossing, but it just didn't connect in my mind that this one would also be having that sort of epidemic sort of thing happening. I thought that was a really interesting aspect of it, and I can also see how like the characters in the book prepared for this sort of thing versus like how we're preparing for it. They are way more prepared than we were. So yeah, that's just great. This was really good. It was a really great read for the times as well. So I really enjoyed that. So that is all I have for you right now, and I'll check in with you guys later. So it's Friday, April 3rd, and I started Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban by J.K. Rowling. So like all of my Harry Potter rereads that I've been doing, I'm reading the illustrated edition and annotating the paperback copy that I got for the point of annotating it. And so far, I'm enjoying this one. I do feel like the illustrations are not as good as the previous two books, but that might just be because like the best illustrations are always at the end, and I've only read the first 3 chapters now, but I will show you some of the illustrations that I really liked. So first of all, the inside cover is gorgeous. I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be of Azkaban. Like this ship and island seems to be a pretty big theme for the illustrations. So I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be Azkaban, because I mean, it's Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. At the beginning of this book, you wouldn't even have a description of Azkaban. Like we never visit Azkaban, so that's kind of an interesting choice there. Again, I feel like this is also supposed to be Azkaban. More walls and stuff. One thing I will say about this though, is like, I like the texture behind the words. Like these are pages that I normally wouldn't look at. Like this is the copyright page, that's in all books, but you normally don't look at it, and it made me look at it because there's stuff behind it. The Monster Book of Monsters, Bulldog. Okay, and these next couple of ones I think are probably the best ones, because it's when Harry blows up his Aunt Marge, the feet, and of course Aunt Marge. It's crazy. This is when he's going by the night bus and he sees the black dog, and of course the night bus, which is also on the cover over here. So those are kind of the same picture. I actually really love that the night bus is on the cover of this, because it gives it that purple scheme, which I really love the purple scheme, and Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban is my favorite book in the Harry Potter series. So I'm really glad that this is the one that got like more of a purple scheme. Oh, this is when he's traveling on the night bus. You can kind of see the night bus right there, and it's the cityscape behind him. I hope you guys can see that. You might not be able to see it if it's too low down. Yeah, so this is the cityscape down here, and you can see the night bus right there on the edge. Again, I like the texture in the background of the text. Oh, and that's where I ended. But yeah, I'm enjoying this. Of course, I'm gonna love it once we get to Hogwarts, because like I said, Prisoner of Azkaban is my favorite of the Harry Potter books. Next, yesterday, I did start The Stand by Stephen King. So I was pretty excited for this one, because I feel like it's really relevant to our situation right now, because we're going through COVID-19. So we're all like social distancing and stuff, because we don't want to get sick. And The Stand is an apocalyptic book in which a flu virus spreads across the earth and ends the world as we know it. And wow, I feel like it might have been a mistake picking up this book, because there are sections of this book where he's just talking about like, oh, this person sneezed and blah, blah, blah. And then there are other sections where he's like, and he infected this matron old lady, and the lady went on to infect her entire bridge club. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm getting so paranoid now. Not that I wasn't a little bit paranoid before, because mind you, I'm still going to work because my job is in supply chain, which is considered an essential business, but also because I'm in supply chain operations, I'm around a lot of people while I'm at work. When I'm there, Like every time I touch a doorknob, I'm like, okay, I need hand sanitizer. Like literally, it's terrible. I mean, they're propping all the doors open now, so like we don't need to touch doorknobs anymore, but you get my idea, right? So I feel like this book is getting me a little bit more paranoid than it was before. And I realized the flu in this book is significantly more severe than coronavirus, but it's getting me a little paranoid. And I'm not anxiety stricken at all. Like I don't get anxious very easily, but it's kind of getting me on that edge. So I don't know how this is gonna go, but I'm enjoying it so far. It definitely feels real, if you know what I mean. So it's still Friday. I decided to pick up Nothing to See Here by Kevin Wilson. So this is a literary fiction about a woman who goes to help one of her friends from high school who has two stepchildren who spontaneously combust, which is a very interesting concept. When I found out that this was about spontaneous human combustion, I was a little skeptical, to say the least. But I'm really enjoying this a lot more than I was expected to, especially because it's literary fiction. A lot of times with literary fiction, I have difficulty getting into it. I feel like a lot of people with literary fiction have difficulty getting into it, but I'm really enjoying this one. I think it's because it's very character driven and I love character driven stories, and I'm excited to see where this goes because I have no idea what this book is going to be about. I especially liked the beginning and the relationship between the two friends from high school because their relationship is pretty complex, and I love it when there are like good complex relationships, and this one is really interesting and I'm really excited to see more of it. By the way, this is also a really short book, so there is a good chance that I might finish this one today as well. So I finished Nothing to See Here by Kevin Wilson. I don't know how I feel about it right now because on one hand, it drew me into the story right away and kept me really engaged with the story because it has an interesting concept. It has great characters with complex relationships, and I really wanted to see what would happen, but I felt like it ended super abruptly. I felt like the plot was just getting started and then it just ended. I loved it, but I wasn't satisfied with it, if you know what I mean. So I enjoyed this, but I wanted more from it, so I ended up giving it 4 stars. It is Saturday, April 4th, and I made progress on Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban by J.K. Rowling. Obviously, I'm annotating the paperback and reading the illustrated edition. I'm gonna have to work on reading this a bit slower because I wanted to do a much slower reread of this series than I have in the past. I set myself 3 weeks to read this, which is about a chapter a day. It's been about 24 hours and I'm already 5 chapters into it. So that's about 5 times faster than I had planned to read this book. So before we get to my other updates, I'm gonna quickly go through some of the illustrations from this past couple of chapters that I really loved. So we left off at the beginning of The Leaky Cauldron, chapter 4. And I really like the texture behind the words. I think especially in this chapter, I think they do it for pretty much the entire chapter, and I really, really love it. So this is probably the first full page illustration in the book. I think it's kind of okay. So this is the magical creature shop where Crookshanks is living before Hermione finds him. It's a pretty interesting one because you can kind of see all the different magical creatures, which apparently the Harry Potter series is like all about magical creatures. I kind of really love this one. I don't know if you can see Crookshanks at the bottom chasing Scabbers. It's fantastic. I love the fur texture behind the words here. So now we're at chapter 5, the Dementor. Again, this chapter also has a pretty interesting texture behind the words. I really like when they're doing it that way. I don't think they have as many full page illustrations in this one as the previous ones, but they have a lot more of the texture, which I really like. Crookshanks and Scabbers again. This one I really, really like. So this is the Dementor on the train, obviously. And then you can see Lupin here with the fire in his hand. I completely forgot about that. I don't know. I've read this book so many times. You have no idea how many times I've read this particular Harry Potter book. And I never remembered that Lupin had fire like actually in his hand. And I really wish they had done that on the movie because I feel like that would have been so cool to look at in the movie. It would have been really hard to do though. But still, it would have been really cool. But yeah, I really, really like this one. The Gates of Hogwarts, I really like that it interacts with the text as well. The trees in the background. The trees are so great. I really love the trees, and you can kind of see the silhouette of the Hogwarts castle back here as well. And those are all of the illustrations from the last couple of chapters. These were fantastic. I really, really enjoyed this last couple of chapters, and I think this book is just gonna be one of the best reading experiences that I'm gonna have all month because this is my favorite book in the Harry Potter series, and I am so, so excited for it. I have also made quite a bit of progress on Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. I am right about there now, so about halfway through the book. I'm really enjoying this one. It is very character focused, which I love character focused books, but I feel like the characters that it's focusing more on, I'm not as interested in. Now, mind you, I do like these characters. Like, I like all of them, but I want it to focus more on Kaz, and it's not. Like, I love the sections with Inej and even Nina. Nina's sections are actually really, really good here, as well as Matthias. But every time Wylan or Jasper comes up, I'm just kind of like, come on, move on to the next character. And I feel like that happens with any book where there are multiple character point of views. And I feel like this is one of those books where, like, if I do reread it in the future, I'm not gonna have an issue with Wylan and Jasper. Like, I'm gonna love their sections. But right now, because I'm so focused on some of the other characters like Inej and Kaz, their sections are a little slow for me. But I'm still really enjoying this, and I'm hoping to finish this one next week. I've also made a little bit of progress on the stand. I'm right there now, so not super far into it. That's still a significant amount of pages, 250 something, so that's a lot, even though this is like a 1,200 page book. So like, it's gonna take me a while to get through this, and I have to take this in like small doses because it's terrifying, mostly because of the parallels to what is going on right now. This book feels very real and very terrifying. Because of that, I need to like break up my reading time with it. And it doesn't help that Stephen King's writing style is both very realistic and very terrifying. So for this one, I'm definitely having to break up like reading it only like a chapter at a time and then going to a much happier book because this one is scary in a very real way. So those are all the books that I'm currently reading. This week I ended up finishing 4 books. The first one was Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets by J.K. Rowling. This was a reread, obviously, because I was annotating it and reading the illustrated edition, and I loved it, and I ended up giving it 5 stars. It is still my least favorite book in the Harry Potter series, but I've given all of the books in the Harry Potter series 5 stars, and this one is still really good, especially the ending. I love the ending of this book, and obviously I'm already reading this 3rd book in the series because it's fantastic and I really enjoy this series. The next book that I finished was The Shadow of What Was Lost by James Islington. This one really surprised me because I had seen sort of like meh reviews on it, but at the same time, this is one that I've been wanting to read for over a decade, so I was kind of excited going into it, and I really, really enjoyed it. That being said, I do think this is the type of book that you'd only really like if you're a fan of high fantasy. Like, I don't think it really steps out of the genre that much, but I am very much a fan of high fantasy. I really loved all the tropes and the ideas that it brought into the story. I also think that this is a little bit more of a character-driven book rather than a plot-driven book, but I think what really sold me on the story was the atmosphere. I just really, really love the atmosphere of this book, and it just made me feel good while I was reading it. So I just loved it because of that, and I ended up giving it 4.75 stars. The next book that I finished is Forest Mage by Robin Hobb. This is also very much a character-driven high fantasy book, and this one is devastating. Every time you think it can not possibly get worse for the main character, it gets worse. And there's also a plague epidemic happening in this one, so that's great as well. But I loved it, and I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars. And the last one that I finished is Nothing to See Here by Kevin Wilson. So this is a literary fiction following Lillian, who was friends with a girl named Madison in high school, and it's years later, and Madison asks her to be a governess for her 2 stepchildren who have this mysterious medical condition in which they spontaneously combust. So it has a very interesting concept, and I really love the writing this. I felt like it was brilliantly written because the characters are very unique. I love their complex relationships, and I like the way that it was done, but it also felt like the beginning of a story to me rather than a complete story in and of itself. As soon as I finally started getting into the plot and wanted more from the plot, it ended. So while I really enjoyed every second while I was reading this book, I wasn't completely satisfied with it, so I ended up giving it 4 stars. So that is all I have for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. I post videos every Monday, Thursday, and Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern time, so consider subscribing. I also post bonus videos. If you want to be notified as soon as I upload, you can click that little bell icon. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up to support my channel. All social media links are in the description down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.